You're there.
I was. I don't know. What do you want me to do?
Click on it. Click on this.
Oh, you want me to be muted? See what it did? Is that right? Is that the result you wanted? That's not what you wanted.
Click on here.
I'm sounding like the Jolly Green Giant all over the change. Where? You do it.
Are we good to go? Okay. Is council chambers unmuted? Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm calling the meeting to order, 2 o'clock, Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022. Hey, that's a lot of twos. I don't even know where to start. I'm just going to say that, full disclosure, I'm not that prepared for today. Many of us, everyone in this room, received some very, very disturbing and sad news yesterday. And we lost one of our key employees and friends up on the 3rd floor. Rayanne left force. And so, you know, I tried to figure out how to acknowledge her this morning. A moment of silence. Jackie Hansen suggested a land acknowledgement because Rayanne had just so eagerly and recently embraced her Indigenous heritage. I haven't settled on anything, to tell you the truth. I honestly think I'm still numb. And so I'm just going to acknowledge that it happened. I'm going to give everybody a lot of leeway today in how we approach today's meeting because it's all very new and terribly sad. So that's all I really, unless anyone wanted to add, but I think we should just get on with the meeting. I think it's going to be important to keep busy for the next few days as we try to deal with the shock of this loss. I need a motion. Attendance at the start of the meeting is 100% with Councillor Bermansky and Councillor Hughes on Zoom. And now I need a motion to adopt the agenda. Thank you, Councillor Mackay.
Thank you. That the February 22nd, 2022 agenda be adopted as presented.
All right. I am unaware of any amendments. Does anyone else need to amend anything? We're good. All right. Call for the vote. Voting's closed. Sorry, I'm just getting the participants button so I can see Shelley and Sheena's hands. But all right, we are closed and that's unanimous. All right, we do have a proclamation I want to read today. And it is Pink Shirt Day. That is actually tomorrow. So I see many, well, I think everyone down here is wearing pink of some sort. And looks like we've got it covered up here and I see some at home, so that's good.
Mr. LaFleur's face is pink.
It's all good. I did I did look at a little bit of the history of what Pink Shirt Day is in Canada, and I actually found out that this, although a global movement, it did actually start in Canada in Nova Scotia. And I have a little thing that is a quote to read, so I found it very interesting. So David Shepard and Travis Price and their teenage friends organized a high school protest to wear pink in sympathy with a grade 9 boy who was being bullied for wearing a pink shirt. They took a stand against bullying when they protested against the harassment of a new grade 9 student by distributing pink t-shirts to all the boys in the school. I learned that 2 people could come up with an idea, run with it, and it can do wonders, said Mr. Price, 17, who organized the pink protest. Finally, someone stood up for a weaker kid. So Mr. Shepard and some others headed off to the discount store and bought 50 pink tank tops. They sent out messages to schoolmates that night. And the next morning, they hauled the shirts to school in a plastic bag, and they stood in the foyer handing out the shirts. The bullied boy walked in. His face spoke volumes. It looked like a huge weight was lifted off his shoulders, Mr. Price recalled, and the bullies were never heard from again. Great story. Great story. And honestly, given watching the news over the weekend and some of the divisive language that all 7 members of this council have received over the last 18 to 24 months, I think we just really need to learn to take care of one another, be kind. And so tomorrow, on the 23rd of February, I'm encouraging everyone in St. Albert to do a little bit of research. As my Zoom profile has a Pink Shirt Day banner on it. You can get that off of their website. Wear a pink shirt, obviously. Do some picture taking, do some hashtagging, and maybe just do something nice for somebody tomorrow. So I'll read the proclamation. And then we have Hannah Miller, who's going to accept it for us. And Hannah, if you want, you can say a few words after, but I'll let that up to you. I don't want to put you on the spot. So whereas Pink Shirt Day highlights the commitment to make St. Albert a safe, welcoming, and inclusive city, and whereas acts of bullying, discrimination, harassment, intimidation, and violence have a profound effect on an individual's feelings of safety, self-worth, and ability to learn, and are unacceptable in a safe, caring, and orderly society. And whereas Pink Shirt Day is an opportunity to recognize efforts to build communities that foster respect, inclusion, fairness, equity, and compassion. And whereas Pink Shirt Day is an opportunity to actively promote respectful and kind behavior. And whereas Pink Shirt Day is an occasion to celebrate the actions of individuals, schools, communities, and sports organizations to address bullying, discrimination, harassment, intimidation, and violence. And now, therefore, I, Kathy Heron, Mayor of the City of St. Albert, do hereby proclaim February 23rd, 2022 as Pink Shirt Day in the City of St. Albert. I encourage all residents to wear their pink shirts proudly and to show support for ending bullying in our community and their commitment to building a safe, respectful, inclusive St. Albert. So yes, we have Helen Miller, and she is the mentoring facilitator from Big Brothers Big Sisters. She's going to accept the proclamation. So Hannah, do you have anything you want to add?
Hi, Mayor Heron. Thank you very much for inviting us to this. So yeah, I just wanted to say at Big Brothers Big Sisters, we promote inclusivity and being kind to one another every single day. We're a family that fights bullying together, and we know that through the act of mentorship with a child or youth and an older role model, we can prevent and fight bullying together. The mentoring relationship can create an authentic and engaging opportunities, model skills essential to healthy relationships, enhance kids' feelings of safety and belonging, and decrease bullying behaviors. So we gladly accept this. Thank you. Awesome.
We will get the hard copy of this over to you. Also, Council, if you notice, we have Shannon Pillar, who is our Youth Asset Development Coordinator with the city. So I don't know, Shannon, do you want to talk if there's anything that the city is doing tomorrow?
Sorry, there, lost my mouse. Yes, Mayor Heron, the city BAM, Building Assets and Memories, is hosting a kindness week. So if you check out our Instagram, every day they're hosting a different sort of campaign. So today is Be Kind to Your Friends. We have different things they can do to promote kindness in our community.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you both for joining us. This is something that I'm really excited to do every year to acknowledge this day. Started off obviously about fighting bullying with youth, but I think honestly it can extend to adults just as easily. So, all right, we will get this over to you, Hannah, right away. All right, Council. We also have registered to speak with us the Arts and Heritage Foundation. They wanted to speak to us about their new strategic plan. I see Stacy is here with us. Is Ann Ramsden also joining us, or is it just you?
I think it's just up to me.
Well, that's great. I'm really glad that you could join us. So Stacy, take it away and let us know what AHF has got going on.
Thank you so much. As mentioned, my name is Stacy Morier, and I'm the Vice Chair of the St. Albert Arts and Heritage Foundation. And I want to start out by thanking Council. I know that last year's budget was very difficult, and I want to thank you for the funding. It allowed us to maintain our programs throughout the pandemic. And as mentioned during our budget presentation the other day, we've adopted a new strategic plan for the 2021-2024 year span. This plan is very timely as we start our recovery from the effects of the pandemic that has hit the culture sector so hard and our families that are in the community. We're in a strong position before the pandemic, and this plan is going to help us recover in a good way. Our new strategic plan can be found on our website, and we will also email you a copy if you like. Looking at our plan, which unfortunately I'm not there to provide to you in person, although I could probably walk there in about 30 seconds, there are three major pillars of the plan. Build for the future, engage in our community today, and strengthen our network. These pillars include strategies that will not only position us to recover, they will allow us to adapt to the changes in the pandemic that is made in the cultural sector. And you can expect that we will continue our online presence as well as in-person exhibits, tours, and programs that the community is looking forward to. We have always been rooted in the community of St. Albert, and we're looking for ways to grow and engage our community in culture. Arts and heritage has two areas that are important to our community. They add to the quality of a life, attract new residents, and make St. Albert an attractive place to do business. Our goal is to make the visual arts and heritage accessible to all members of the community. Over the last 2 years, many nonprofit groups have worked together and supported others during these challenging times, and we are no exception to that. We intend to continue to strengthen our networks as we work together for the good of the community. Over the past 12 years, we have partnered with the city to restore all the heritage buildings, and we would like to thank the city for that investment. The recently restored Art Gallery of St. Albert shows an investment in the downtown core, as well as arts, and has attracted attention in the capital region, even outside of St. Albert. The historic houses, which I believe you saw last year, on the river lots are now restored, and along with the grain elevators, they're open to the public on a seasonal basis. We are excited about the tourist potential for these sites and the linkage to the Red Willow Trail system. I believe in the upcoming years, we're going to see families want to stay closer to home, just given the cost of traveling, inflation, and the pandemic, which truly isn't over yet. There's still a lot of work to be done, and we look forward to partnering with the city to complete the outstanding phases of the updated functional plan for the heritage sites. This area will become an important park space with some significant heritage buildings that tell the many stories of St. Albert, from the early Métis families that settled here, the Franco-Albertans, and the agricultural history of the St. Albert area. And there's not many communities that can say that you have a brand new subdivision that'll be butting up against such a large park like that, or museum. Once again, I'd like to thank Council and City Administration for your support, and we look forward to continuing to provide exceptional arts and heritage experiences to our community. That is my presentation.
Well, thank you, Stacey.
Thank you.
Are you okay if we have a few questions?
Sure, I'll try my best to answer them. I feel like I need to.
Yeah, we did. I think majority of us were there from last council in the summer, sitting outside appropriately spaced at the park, and we're excited to see it open. So I think probably it would be a nice idea if you wanted to invite council for a tour once it's really officially open and you have some of your tour guides. They can practice on council for sure anytime.
That's great.
So I'll open it up to questions. Does any member of council have any questions? I see none in chambers. How about you on Zoom? Sheena, Shelley? Oh, Stacey, you're off the hook.
Thank you.
That was easy. So thank you for joining us. It's always really nice to get that update and see what's going on at AHF, and it's probably good for the public to hear as well. So I appreciate you taking the time today.
Sounds great. Thank you, guys. Take care.
Great.
Bye-bye.
And we do have some registered speakers. I saw Malcolm Bruce was here and Carmen. Malcolm, I'm not sure who's leading your presentation, but I'm going to ask if you want to do it now or if you want to wait till we get to that point in the agenda.
I am very happy to do it now, Mayor Herron, if that would be the wish of you and your council.
Okay, why don't we do it now? Because we do have a public hearing after. I wouldn't want to make you wait. So yeah, why don't we head into that now and then we'll open it up for questions.
Thank you very much. And I just want to, first of all, offer my deepest condolences to both the family and also, of course, the larger St. Albert team on the passing of one of your team members. These are the most difficult of times, and you do have our deepest condolences on that loss. As you know, today is a discussion around the Air Services Opportunity Fund. It is specifically dealing with years 2 and 3 funding, which St. Albert is been asked to determine whether or not they feel that this is appropriate for them to embark upon. That question is, of course, for you and your council solely. We're here with the intent to provide you information about the fund, as well as answer any questions that the council may have. And just as a reminder, I do have 2 compatriots here to help with the question and answers. One is Carmen, who is from EIA. And of course, I also have the VP of, and I'm going to get this one wrong, but it's the VP of CFO and VP of Culture and Risk also, Leslie Kwasny, I think is Leslie on the line as well. Okay, so there are 2 people from EIA that are going to help answer any questions that I can't answer. But I also want to just stress that the briefing that we're going to give you is the public forum. And if you want any more additional details on specific deals, we were not going to go into them one by one, but we could talk about sort of the impact the fund has had to date, and we can do so in camera if you so wish, Mayor. If that's acceptable, I'm happy to carry on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you have a PowerPoint to share? Are you able to share your screen?
I think Amanda Borman is going to help share. There we go.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, Amanda, I don't, can everybody see that, or does it need to be bigger?
We can see it.
Okay,
It could be
perfect.
bigger,
Thank you
but-
very much. Next slide, please. Okay, so this slide really is about talking to the purpose and why the importance of the airport from a regional perspective is so important for our business economy, not just the airport in its intrinsic value, but the connectedness that the airport provides for the entire region, both in terms of movement of people, but also the goods and services that move in and out of our region. And being a landlocked region, the airport and the connectedness through airlines is our principal way to attract international investors, international visitors, so the visitor economy, as well as the movement of goods, high value goods in and out of this particular location. Next slide, please. So these are really, and this is a reminder of really what the purpose of the fund was. And as if you remember, when we spoke to you in December, it's really about 4 things. It's about reestablishing international service that was lost during the pandemic, where we had 18 months of international closure at our airport. And this is really about enticing those airlines to come back to help service those key economic destinations. So not all destinations, but key economic destinations that are important to businesses, both businesses moving from or moving out in terms of export from our and services from our region, but also import. For import-export opportunities, but also for people that are looking to invest in our region. We also wanted to make sure that we were able to establish and reestablish key connections to both eastern and western seaboards, as well as increase the opportunity for an airline-based headquarters here, as well as additional aircraft to be based in the Edmonton metropolitan region. And then finally, obviously, is to help increase cargo for both imports and exports. And I always like to highlight here is that cargo import export is very critical, and over 50% of all imports for cargo are done in the belly of passenger planes. And so the fact that we had 18 months where we did not have international passenger planes, it was really detrimental to a number of our businesses, particularly those in the export space. The only other point I would like to make here is this fund is essential in attracting these types of connections back to our region. But it's also about the fact that all 14 member municipalities that represent the contributions to the initial fund here is critical to the airlines to demonstrate the kind of partnership that this region is willing to embark upon with the airlines that are interested in doing work here. Next slide, please. So this is just a reminder that there is a very transparent, very rigorous approval process that gets us to a yes. It really has a CEO review once the case has been, a business case has been submitted by the airport after their negotiations with an airline. After my review, if I deem it to be sufficient, it then goes to the subcommittee of the board, who then in turn either says yes or no. If it gets no, there's an appeal to the full board of Edmonton Global. If it gets yes, then preliminary approval is given back to the airport to continue negotiations. And then a final negotiated settlement comes back to Edmonton Global, who then commit funds based on the actual activation of the opportunity. So if it's a flight or if it's a cargo opportunity, funds are not released to the airport until that actual activation of the activity. This fund is a 3-year fund. It ends in June of 2024. And there is also a complementary and integral audit process that also accompanies this particular approval process. Next slide, please. So the subcommittee of the board, and as you know, Edmonton Global is the manager of the fund, and the fiduciary oversight that has been vested by the member municipalities that contributed to this fund, because they felt that we were in the best position through our board to be able to provide that kind of oversight to be able to deliver on the outcomes that we're looking for. Next slide, please. Currently, we did a mid-year update in November of last year that indicated that we had some initial dealings with the fund for the first business case. And we're looking for the summer of 2022 to establish some of these. So there'll be a subsequent set of business cases coming to the board for their review and consideration. And then hopefully out by 2023, we'll have some additional European capacity that we're being looked at. Specific deals will not be spoken about. As you can appreciate, they're always very confidential and sensitive. But the point being is what we're doing is fulfilling the objectives of the fund to be able to deliver on these outcomes. And as I've indicated, if there's something that people would like to speak about more specifically, I'm happy to go in camera to talk about that, the review of that first business case that we did at the mid-year update. And I'm assuming, but I can't confirm that yet, that there may be additional considerations for the shareholder group to review at the AGM coming up in April, the next set of business cases. And with that, Mayor Herron, I will push it back for any questions for either myself or my two colleagues from EIA for council, given that you've seen this material before. And I just wanted to provide a refresh to you. Thank you.
Appreciate that. I guess my first question is maybe to Mr. LaFleur. If anyone does have a question that needs to go on camera, do we have a motion that we can use? Do we know what section of VoIP? Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I've been working on the wording of a motion. I do know exactly which VoIP section. So if that happens, we'll have something ready. I'll work with the legend.
Okay. Thanks. Appreciate that. All right. Council, any questions for either Edmonton Global or EIA? And go ahead, Sir Broadhead. We'll start you off.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to Mr. Bruce. Thank you for coming today, for sure. I appreciate your perspective on attracting business to the region. I understand the merits behind the request. So my question to you is how critical are we at this particular juncture? It seems like we're coming towards the end of the strict lockdown portion of COVID. May that be true, knocking on wood. But are there low-hanging fruit right now that are before Edmonton Global in this respect that would make immediate use of these kinds of funds to bolster the air traffic into our communities?
So thank you very much for the question, and Councillor, the short answer is yes. So as you know, during that 18-month period where our airport lost its services, its international services, that also meant all the infrastructure that support those flights were no longer available. So to be able to reestablish that infrastructure here, airlines who have parked over 20% of their fleets. So they've parked 20% of their fleets, and those fleets aren't coming back because they're old. So they're waiting for new orders. And as you know, Airbus has got a 7,000 plane back order right now, and Boeing is very close to about 4,500. So what that means is there's less flights available, and with COVID, there's less air crews available. So there's very stiff competition for places that are going to be serviced. I can give you one international airline that does service EIA have stopped flying in 72 different other airports, but are continuing to fly out of here. And part of that is because of this regional approach and the support that this region is given. And as you know, that one particular airline is very critical to our transatlantic capacity. So from my perspective, this sort of regional approach, this support that they're seeing is very, very important for them to stay flying. And to just put it in perspective, there are other airports that we deal with that are in strict competition with us. And one of the challenges I will say as a low-hanging fruit is there are at least 3 different options now on the table to build a rail link between Edmonton and Calgary. And those are unsolicited proposals. But I will say to you that while the intrinsic value of a rail link may be apparent for the movement of people and goods to Edmonton to Calgary and vice versa, the macro GDP impact to our region has never been studied. And the concern is that once an airline or a business sees that they are going to have to get on a train to travel to Calgary to be able to fly anywhere, then they will not make the kind of investment decisions that will actually enable greater growth and prosperity in our region. So part of this is also trying to strengthen our value proposition to investment companies by saying, look, we're investing back into reestablishing these critical flights for business and also ensuring that we're able to promote these particular ones amongst the business community. Thank you.
Thank you. As a follow-up to that, so one of the things I've been hearing is that during the pandemic, one of the significant things that has happened is the massive increase in air cargo, and not so much air traffic, as that has fallen off. Air cargo is ramped up, and are ordered something online, and it flew from Vietnam to Anchorage to Memphis, and then back to Toronto to get sent back to Edmonton. One of the things that I've heard is that Edmonton's, or the region of Edmonton, if you will, one of the sort of value propositions here is that we have direct links to the north. The direct link is through Edmonton rather than Calgary. Where is our investment dollars best spent? Is this one in a quiver of arrows, or is this the big one that we need to shoot here, or are there others that we need to consider in the overall economic impact of our communities?
That's a really good question, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the broad set of tools. I think is the way you phrased it, is that it's our interconnectedness as a region here, where we have road, rail, and air all sort of come together. And there was a very large supplier, I won't be able to tell you the name, but a very large supplier of clothing almost didn't have their Black Friday sale day because they could not get stock in. Now, they don't want the weakness in their supply chains to become public, but let's just say they use the Edmonton metropolitan region and the EIA airport here to be able to fly in all their stock across North America, came here, and then was distributed out amongst the other, amongst the road and rail networks to be able to get to their Friday sales. And it saved their Black Friday sale. because they used Edmonton and the connectedness here within our region. So I would say that in terms of high value cargo, air is always going to be a very important linkage for us, but it also integrates into the road network that's here in terms of transportation for Western Canada and Western North America, as well as being able to bring in very unique items through either the port facilities where we can then break down those containers when they come in. They can be broken down in our region and then distributed to those particular requirements or those areas where they're looking for. So I can't give you, it's better to go by air than land, but I can say that each one has their own unique value proposition, and we need them all to be able to fully integrate a high speed and a highly successful supply chain. And Carmen, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
No, good afternoon all. Greetings from EIA. I can, Malcolm, and I'll add on the passenger side, when we look at the different opportunities, and the team and I were just down in San Antonio, Texas last week, meeting with all the airports and all of our North American carriers to talk about opportunities going forward. And so when we look at opportunity costs, you'll note that Air Canada announced today the return of Yellowknife service here June 1st. Our focus here, rather than the domestic product, is really on getting the carriers from the US, primarily the Eastern Seaboard, back into our market and that connectivity. So including some of the northern mid, I'll call it, ports and hubs from the US carriers. So that's where I see the greatest opportunity, along with the international service, of course. We never take our eye off that ball. Thank you.
I don't know if this is even an appropriate question, but it just begs to be answered. Is the provincial government coming to the table and recognizing the merits of supporting rail or air traffic into the provincial capital? Like, I mean, is it on their agenda at all? Are you beating down their door? Or?
So we wrote a formal letter to the Premier, and we received a response that we're congratulating us on the initiative. And I will say, though, just so you're aware, that Ottawa, I've been in contact with the mayor's office in Ottawa about this initiative, because they see the merits of what it's done for our region. And as you know, they're an amalgamated, but they're equivalent to our size of our region. And they are looking very seriously at the same thing to be able to bring international service back to the city of Ottawa, just simply because they've really struggled on trying to get their services back. And they've seen we've had a much better accelerated success rate. And Carmen, maybe you can just talk about, I think we're the second fastest airport to return air services now, I think, or Leslie, I'm not sure if you can talk about that, but there's a stat there that I know that may be of some relevance to the conversation.
Sure, I'll turn it over to Leslie, and then maybe I'll add after she goes. Thanks.
Thanks, Carmen, and thank you for allowing us to be in front of the council today. Very, very pleased to be here. Yes, we do receive stats across the country from the largest airports, and our domestic recovery, because we have such a high percentage of domestic passengers, our overall recovery is second across the top tier 1 airports, the top 8 tier 1 airports. So we're very pleased with that recovery. Mind you, it is not fantastic yet. We're still well below our historical levels, but are glad to see the numbers coming back due to the great work that Malcolm and Carmen's team have been doing. So, Carmen?
Thank you for that, Leslie. I might add that, part of the reason we see such great numbers on the domestic side is you're all aware that we weren't permitted international traffic. So that is where our greatest opportunity is. And again, why we're so focused on transborder and international. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Excellent. Any other questions from members of council? I had one, Malcolm. I don't know if you got a chance to look at the agenda package that our staff prepared for us before you got here. But the one key question I had is, under the financial implications of our decision today, it indicates that the fund is close to the 15 million target, only a couple $1,000s short. And our years 2 and 3 would be close to 600,000. And it says in our agenda package that it is administration's understanding that surplus contributions above the 50 million goal will be repaid to contributing municipalities based on their proportional contribution. So is that your understanding as well?
So that is correct at the end of the fund's life. So when the fund expires in June of 2024, if there's any remaining funds, they will then be redistributed in accordance with the funding model that created the fund. But what we've said, because as you know, Leduc County anteed up to 1.5 million, 500,000 a year, that puts the fund over the expected projection of 15 million. But as we indicated when we were establishing the fund, if there's greater contributions, then we'll absorb them because it just enhances our ability to attract additional flights. So rather than say 6 or 7 or 7 or 8 flights, we may be able to get 8 or 9 with the additional funds. So that's really what the intent was. But any residual funds at the end of June of 2024 that are unexpended will be returned to the municipalities.
Okay, so it's not capped at 15 million.
Correct.
Okay. All right, I see no further questions from members of council. So we have this public hearing next, and then we have a couple of agenda items. So I don't know if you want to watch it on our YouTube channel or just wait for a report back tomorrow morning from our staff. But I do appreciate you being here to answer questions because obviously there were a few questions. So thank you for that. We need all the information before we make this decision. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much and good luck, Council.
Thank you very much.
Thank
All right,
you.
Council, next on our agenda is business arising from the presentations. Anything related to the air services we'll leave till we get that agenda. But is there any questions for staff on the Arts and Heritage Foundation strategic plan? I see none. We're moving on then to consent agenda. I've heard that from Councillor Hughes that she'd like to pull 8.5 off consent, but other than that, I think everything is remaining. So go ahead, Councillor Jolly.
That the recommendations in the following agenda reports be approved. 6.1, regular council meeting minutes of January 31, 2022, February 7, 2022, and special council meeting minutes of February 14, 2022. 8.1, the CLSC draft unadopted minutes and agenda items from February 14, 2022. 8.2, the CLSC recommendation for the St. Albert Poet Laureate Review Committee appointment. 8.3, the CLSC recommendation for the Community Satisfaction Survey results. 8.4, Community Growth and Infrastructure Standing Committee draft unadopted minutes and agenda items from February 14, 2022. 8.6, the CGISC recommendation, neighborhood plan approval process, and 10.1, bylaw 47, 2021, Jensen Lake Area Structure Plan Amendment, first reading. 10.2, bylaw 48, 2021, Jensen's Lakes 12th redistricting, first reading, and 10.3, bylaws 3, 2022, and 4, 2022, land use bylaw text amendments, first reading.
You always seem to pick the ones that have a lot of text. That's true. All right, I call for the vote on that. Voting's closed. And that passes unanimously. All right. Now I get to read all the stuff that was on consent. So I'm not going to read the minutes, but the minutes from January 31st, February 7th, and our special council meeting of February 14th were just adopted. No changes. Next on the agenda is the public hearing. So we are doing a public hearing now for land use bylaw it's bylaw 2/2022, land use bylaw 205, the 205th amendment, second and third reading. So I'll declare the public hearing open. We have no registered speakers for the public hearing, but we do have Lindsay and Vicky to help do a presentation. So I will turn it over to them. Awesome. Thank you, ladies, for being ready. And this is essentially around annexation stuff. So go ahead.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to present on Bylaw 2/2022, Land Use Bylaw Amendment. So what is the purpose of this amendment? Well, the annexation from Sturgeon County was approved by the province on December 8th, and it became effective January 1st, 2022. So this bylaw will amend the land use bylaw to incorporate the city's boundary change and land use regulations for the annexation area. Doing this will remove the Sturgeon County regulations that currently apply. The proposal includes the addition of the Transitional District, the Alternate Jurisdiction District, and updates the mapping contained within Schedule A. The proposed amendment requires a public hearing and council's approval as per the requirements in the Municipal Government Act. So the first, The first new district is the Transitional District. The purpose of this district is to regulate agricultural lands within the annexation area, which are undeveloped or developed to low intensity. This district accommodates traditional agricultural operations and the supportive services they use, which do not compromise the ability for future urban intensity and development to occur in an orderly and efficient manner. The intent of this district is to reflect the annexation discussions about maintaining the development and subdivision rights in keeping with Sturgeon County's agricultural land use district. So this district allows existing uses of the land to continue with some reasonable restrictions on future development to allow for urban expansion with limited barriers. Within the district, the permitted uses are agriculture, agriculture accessory building, dugout, single detached house, and home occupation. The second new district being added is the Alternate Jurisdiction District, which is based off Sturgeon County's Alternative Jurisdiction District in their land use bylaw. The purpose of this district is to identify lands that do not require a development permit because they fall under the jurisdiction of federal or provincial legislation. So this district states that a City of St. Albert development permit is not required by reasons of provision in the federal or provincial legislation, or that the developer is the Crown, a Crown agency, or federal industry. So the lands being proposed for this district are shown within that red circle and in the cross hatching, which includes a portion of River Lot 56 and the Poundmakers Lodge site. So to take a closer look at the entire annexation area and the proposed districting, let's take a look at this map. So you can see in the diagonal hatching here, a large part of the annexation area is that new transitional district. Then we have the portion of River Lot 56 that is within the floodplain, and a piece of MR over here being redistricted to public park. Then the other part of River Lot 56 and Poundmakers Lodge site to be districted as alternate jurisdiction. Then we have the municipal cemetery on Poundmaker Road, shown in this black area here, to be redistricted as institutional facilities. And lastly, there is a pump station over here that is to be districted public and private service. So in terms of public engagement, we held a public open house on December 1st. And we've had a Cultivate the Conversation page open. For both of these, we've received some questions of clarification, but we didn't receive any concerns identified from the public. And the public was also mail notified in the landowners in the annexation area, both of the public open house and the public hearing today. So that sums up Bylaw 2 2022. So the recommendation is that the public hearing on Bylaw 2 2022 be closed, that Bylaw 2 2022 being Amendment 205 to the land use bylaw be read a second time, and that Bylaw 2 2022 be read a third time. So we'll take any questions that you have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lindsay. I'll open it up to questions. I'll start because I don't, so go ahead, Councillor Killick.
Thank you for the presentation. Just a question of clarification. I'm not familiar where the park site is in that area that you showed. Is there currently a public park there just north of the church and daycare?
Yes, there is a small site that is that was within the county that was previously within the county that was dedicated as MR. And yeah, it's hard to see on this site, but there is a tiny piece of MR there that is now part of the city.
And it's just north of the church site, is it? Or
yeah, I believe either one of these is the church site. So yeah.
Okay.
It's a small piece.
Yeah, I've driven down that road and just never knew there was a park there.
It's not developed as a park. It's just
it's probably just.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
All right. I have a quick question about if you keep that map up if you want, Lindsay, because I think it's a good one. The alternate jurisdiction. So I'm just a little confused. So if that land that you've got crosshatched there, Riverlock 56, which is kind of on the southeast side of Sturgeon Road, it's owned by the province. So are you saying that if the province wanted to build something there, they would not need to get a development permit? Like, what does that have to align with or conform to?
So in this area, we were looking to if there's sensitive issues associated with maybe the residential school land uses to occur. We didn't want to require development permits for those. But right now, if the province wanted to do something that was covered under provincial legislation, they would not require a development permit already.
So what did I know the MDP is out at EMRB. What does it look like on the MDP map?
Yeah, it's similar. It also shows alternate jurisdiction in that area.
So there's nothing in either the MDP or our proposed land use bylaw that would say that this is environmental, that this is, that we want in the city of St. Albert, we want this to be a natural space. Because if it doesn't say it in the MDP and if it doesn't say it here, I don't know what we have as a protection for this piece of land.
So we did include the portion within the floodplain in the park districting to protect that. But yeah, so in terms of land use districts, alternative jurisdiction doesn't include anything about environment.
Can I just provide a little bit of point of clarification as well? Mayor Herron, and it's I guess these districts are actually showing what is actually our jurisdiction and really our extent of what we can and cannot do. So you're correct, there isn't any designation right now saying that these will be recreational or set aside for any other type of district, because technically, as the province owns these lands, there are certain components, whether you're a university or the province or the federal government, they don't technically ever have to come to the municipality for permission to develop on their properties. And so that's essentially what we've done with the zoning, and this reflects the zoning generally already found within the Sturgeon County bylaws as well.
So is there other examples within our boundaries, beyond, like, ignoring the annex land, of provincially owned land that would have this?
We could go and should we approve this, we could actually go and look at certain lands like Lois Hole Provincial Park as well. That's owned by the province. CN land also follows into some of these jurisdictional components. So there are different lands that we could apply should we want to that type of jurisdiction, that type of land use district.
Right, so use the example of a university or a hospital. So
A university. So
yeah,
the university
stop them from building a university on that piece of land.
Am
I wrong on?
No. If the province decides they want to build something, they will ask us our opinion and for our thoughts on it, I am sure, through this process, but they technically do not have to. For example, the University of Alberta does not have to go to the city of Edmonton for any permits on their land either.
How? That's interesting.
Yeah, it's all through the different acts, but yes, that's the way it works.
Okay, and I had no real questions about the transitional district. So, but I do see that Councillor Hughes and then Councillor Killick has a question.
Thanks, Mayor Herron. Just a quick one. So one of the things you had in there, it said single family housing only. And what I was trying to figure out is sometimes farmers want to put a second property on there so that their children can be on the same property with them. Does it prevent that from happening if they wanted to build a second building? No, I know that we had that many years ago where a family wanted to do that after they were annexed. I just want to know if we're still not going to be allowing that to occur with this annexation.
So these are the listed of permitted uses. So you are permitted to have a single detached house. In the discretionary uses for parcels over 32 hectares, they could have a secondary dwelling as a discretionary use. So it would still be up to the discretion of the development officers.
Okay, so just so I got it right, if that were to come where they wanted to build it so their son could be on the farm, you know, until they inherit the farm, so to speak, or whatever. I understand this is ultimately going to be urban, but in the next generation, it may not be, depending where location is. They still would have that option provided the land was large enough. Is that right?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. That's it.
Councillor Killick.
Thank you. I hope the provincial government would talk to us before they built the university, but really if they built a jail, they would talk to us.
Yeah.
So the question I have is looking at protecting the sturgeon agricultural land and looking at all the uses that were allowed and some that weren't, I didn't see anything specifically about auto wreckers and storage of multiple wrecked vehicles, if you will, or inoperable vehicles. And that can typically be a kind of a touch point for residents with just the look and toxic waste, etc. Is that addressed? I didn't see it in the sturgeon rules, but in the transitional area, is that addressed?
So I can pull up, I have all of the discretionary uses. There's quite a long list. So, and this is for parcels over 16 hectares. And then we have parcels from 4 to 16 hectares and parcels under 4 hectares. And on these lists, we don't have auto wrecker in there from just looking at them here. So I'd say that probably have to be rezoned to something else. Because we do have auto wrecker defined within our land use bylaw, but it's not on the discretionary uses.
So the ones that are acceptable, and because auto wreckers aren't listed on there, that means they wouldn't be allowed. Is that correct?
So we do have some outdoor storage that could you could put some vehicles there. I think Vicky might have something to add to this.
Thank you, Lindsay. I was going to say, for some of the uses that you might be thinking that currently exist, if they're already permitted by Sturgeon County, then they would be allowed to continue to exist after this transition. And moving into the future, if someone wanted to establish an auto records out there, would have to comply with the city's current land use bylaw and the definitions of the uses. So outdoor storage, I'm not sure if that would include an auto wrecker. Also, if you're concerned about unsightly premises of existing situations, that does fall under some of our other bylaws, community standards and that sort of thing. So there could be some enforcement matters out there, although there are provisions for agricultural properties to have some exemptions with respect to outdoor storage, just because of the nature of the operations. There will be very often outdoor storage. So we have to provide for some flexibility for existing agricultural operations as well. Don't know if that answers your question or not, but that's what I had to offer.
So it sounds like if they're existing here, they would be grandfathered under the, but anything new would have to apply for the proper zoning, I guess, or use, which would not be allowed because we don't see it listed here as a discretionary use. Is that correct?
I'd clarify if there's an existing lawfully permitted use in the area, that would continue to be lawfully permitted. If there's something out there that is not lawfully permitted by the county, then it may become an enforcement matter.
Okay, thank you. And I'm pleased to see the cannabis production and micro distribution rules as clear as they are. So thank you.
All right, I'm seeing no more questions from home, but Councillor McKay, you ready to jump into motions? Go ahead.
That the public hearing on bylaw 02/2022 be closed.
Good motion. Is everyone satisfied with what you have to close this public hearing? All right, I'll call for the vote. Voting's closed. And that is unanimous. Awesome. You want to keep going, Councillor McKay?
Yeah, I can do it, or if one of the members of the annexation negotiating.
It's all good.
No, it's all good. I will do it. That bylaw 02/2022 being amendment 205 to the land use bylaw be read a second time.
Thank you for that. Any comments?
No, I just comment from the presentation. I mean, all this is this brings the proposed amendments to our land use bylaw that are brought on because of our annexation and council's approval as per the requirements in the MGA. And it includes the kind of the necessity of creating the two districts as outlined. And this is just one more additional thing that we have to do for a very successful annexation. So thank you for everybody involved.
Thank you for that. Anyone else have any comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Voting's closed. That's unanimous. Councillor McKay, third reading.
That bylaw 02/2022 be read a third time.
Perfect. Call for the vote. Voting's closed. And that's unanimous. All right. Thank you both, Lindsay and Vicky, for joining us and getting that done. Moving on, we're on 8.1, which was on consent, where we just received for information the agenda package and the minutes from February 14th of the Community Living Standing Committee. 8.2 was also on consent. The recommendation was that the task of reviewing applications and recommending a person for appointment by council as the poet laureate for St. Albert is assigned to an independent poet laureate committee or panel appointed by the CEO of the St. Albert Public Library, which shall include a person who is also a member of the Arts Development Advisory Committee. 8.3 was also on consent. The recommendations were as followed, that the report titled Final 2021 City of St. Albert Community Satisfaction Survey Report, statistically valid, developed by Pivotal Research and attached to the February 14th, 2022 Community Living Standing Committee Agenda Report, Community Satisfaction Survey be received as information. Number 2, that the findings of the report titled City of St. Albert 2021 Community Satisfaction Survey Results Report be approved. 8.4 was on consent. The motion read as followed. This was just to receive for information the package and the minutes from the Community Growth and Infrastructure Standing Committee. And 8.5 was pulled off of consent by Councillor Hughes. So I'm assuming, Mr. Hiltz, that you're not doing another presentation on the e-scooters. So I'll just open it up to questions and then we'll entertain some motions. So Councillor Hughes, do you have any questions on this?
Yeah, actually, I don't know if it's to you or to Mr. Hiltz. So, hey, how you doing, Mr. Hiltz? So I just looked at the motion. It's just taken as information. So I'm not sure if, like, it's not really an amendment. I guess it's a motion. So would it be better if I give it as a notice of motion so that staff could prepare a backgrounder, or I'm prepared to just bring it forward as germane?
Yeah, Councillor Hughes, I'd already thought about this over the last couple of hours. I think a notice of motion is much more appropriate. I think we need to, I'm not prepared to vote on your amendment because I haven't heard from the scooter companies themselves or even our economic development staff to see on what that might be implications wise. So if you're okay, can we do that as notice of motion?
Yeah. Can I, do you want me to read it in right now, just as notice of motion, Mayor, or just so that it's on the record? Or do you want me to wait?
No.
Read
Just
it?
read
Okay.
it in and then it'll be in the record, so it's fine.
Okay, just give me 1 second here. I was so ready to go and then I'm not now. Too many screens, do you know what I'm saying? So the motion would be that the e-scooter pilot program is amended to permit up to 20 drop-off pickups within the city and no longer allow e-scooters to be dropped off or picked up outside of the approved locations, and that the approved locations will be the same for all participating e-scooter companies.
Awesome. Thank you for
Okay,
that.
so I pulled it from that, Mayor, and other than that, I don't have anything. So we can just, I don't have any other questions about taking it for information. So.
Okay, perfect. So Mr. Erickson, when that does come back to council, could you maybe contact a couple of the scooter firms to see their thoughts on this as well, besides yourself? And that'll be 21 days from now. So I think there's sufficient time for you to do that research. Do you agree?
Absolutely, Your Worship.
Okay,
and Mayor Herron, could we also have, if you have, because you know, while we're adding to our wish list, could we also have a comparison of how many drop-off locations are like in Edmonton, for example, or how other locations that are doing this, how many they're permitting to do this? Because it just seems really strange the way we're currently doing it. So if you could, if there's anything at all, that would be useful.
Okay. I know Edmonton and Calgary don't have drop-off locations. I'm not sure. So maybe it's just questioning, does anyone have them? But as part of the backgrounder. Councillor Jolly, this was your committee. Do you mind making the motion to receive as information? Thanks.
That the report entitled E-Scooter Program Update be received as information.
Anything to add?
You know, thanks for the presentation last week. I think it almost opened up, you know, we're halfway through a pilot. I'm not sure that we needed an update in that format. It's kind of caused some questions that maybe we weren't ready to answer because the pilot isn't completed.
Yeah.
I don't know that anyone's sold on this business in St. Albert yet, but certainly the committee wanted to see the pilot complete at the end of this year to see what that information looks like. So it was a good discussion. That's all I have. Thank you.
Perfect. Anyone else? Councillor Hughes, is your hand up for debate too?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm glad they brought it forward for a report partway through, because this amendment that our motion I'm bringing forward, I think will address many complaints that are happening. And so had they not brought it forward, it wouldn't have been on our radar to actually see if there's some way we can tweak it to at least discuss how we can make it better, regardless of how this motion goes forward. I think that discussion should occur. So I'm grateful that you actually did, just to remind us about that. Thank you.
All right, anything to close? Because I see no more hands up. All right, call for the vote. Voting is closed. and that passes unanimously. Next on our agenda was 8.6, which was on consent. The motion was as follows, that the report entitled Neighborhood Plan Approval Process dated February 14th, 2022 be received as information, and that administration is directed to bring to council meeting in March or April 2022 a bylaw and any other documents requiring council approval to implement the two-tier ASB process described in the Neighborhood Plan Approval Process report. So we'll see that back in March or April. All right, now we are on to 9.1, which is the Regional Air Services Opportunity Fund. So I see Mr. Erickson's back on screen. So do you have a little bit of a presentation, Mike?
Yes, I do, Your Worship. Let me just pull it
All
up
right.
here. All right. So good afternoon, Your Worship, and members of council. Here, obviously, this afternoon to provide a bit of an update on the Regional Air Service Opportunity Fund and to bring forward a recommendation with respect to year 2 and year 3 funding. Just sort of restate the purpose here, but this is largely due to the fact that Edmonton Global has requested a decision on year 2 funding as we approach the annual general meeting in April of this year. So I'll just go back and just revisit the direction that was provided by council last June. So that was to provide a contribution for year 1, which has been made, that a letter be issued to Edmonton Global by the mayor to Edmonton Global shareholders, which was sent, and that administration returned to council in Q1 of this year with a recommendation on future funding, which is essentially why we're here. So in terms of some background, the Regional Air Service Opportunity, and I apologize, I know Mr. Bruce has provided much of this already, was established to incentivize airlines to reestablish priority direct international flights to and from Edmonton International Airport. The fund was intended to be financed by 14 Edmonton Metro Region municipalities. Each municipality's proportional share was determined using the Edmonton Metro Region Board's cost-sharing formula. The fund was developed as a one-time levy intended to be spread over 3 years, so from 2021 until 2023. Edmonton Global serves as the administrator of the funds and as Mr. Bruce mentioned, to provide that fiduciary oversight for the fund. And Edmonton Airports, also known as the Edmonton Regional Airport Authority, their role is really to use these funds as a tool to incent these potential airlines. So I just wanted to highlight that although the request for funding to municipalities has been made by Edmonton Global shareholders are not required to contribute to the fund. Contributions are made voluntarily. Edmonton Global projects that the $15 million fund, along with in-kind support from Edmonton Airports, will result in the creation of 7,000 jobs and an economic impact of $415 million in GDP to the greater Edmonton metro region. In terms of updates and developments since administration was last before council on this matter back in June, so 14 municipalities have committed financially to the fund. Of those 14, 5 elected to only contribute the year 1 funding, so for 2021, and to evaluate future years before committing to year 2 and year 3. So of those 5, 2 municipalities have provided notice earlier this year that they will not be contributing further to the fund. At the Edmonton Global mid-year update in November of 2021, Edmonton Global shareholders were informed that Edmonton Global had approved 1 application through the Regional Air Service Opportunity Fund. However, details on the route, airline, and anticipated return on investment were not included. The next update on the fund is scheduled for the Edmonton Global annual general meeting in April. And again, Edmonton Global has requested that municipalities make a decision on year 2 by March. So certain accountability and performance measure commitments were made to contributing municipalities through sort of 2 key documents, the Regional Air Service Opportunity Fund business case and the Governance and Accountability Framework. And both of those documents were provided to municipalities in June of last year. There have been some notable disparities between what was committed to contributing municipalities and what has been delivered to date. So some of those key gaps in deliverables include a summary of routes and opportunities pursued, details around routes established and return on investment for the incentivized flights secured, details on the incentives issued and offered, reporting on key outcomes of the expended funds, and the activity forecast for the next 6 months activity with respect to incentivizing routes. Again, these commitments were made directly through the business case and the governance and accountability framework documents that were provided to municipalities. So in terms of next steps, again, I've sort of mentioned this, but we have been requested to make a decision on year 2 funding by March. And there is an update. Edmonton Global has committed to another update at the AGM in April. So administration is recommending that the City of St. Albert provide no further funding for the Regional Air Service Opportunity Fund. Some of the implications of this recommendations include, from a financial perspective, providing no further funding would eliminate the requirement to contribute an additional $573,847 over the next 2 years. The fund is almost $4,000 short of reaching the $15 million targeted. Now, I know there's some clarification provided earlier today around that $15 million target, and that was meant to be a target, not a hard cap. So I think Mr. Bruce provided that clarification earlier. From a risk perspective, there is a possibility that some of the transparency and accountability gaps that were identified may be addressed in the future by Edmonton Global. Although I think Mr. Bruce was quite clear on some of the challenges they have around some of the confidentiality of this work. From an organizational perspective, although St. Albert has been strongly and consistently has promoted and supported intermunicipal collaboration, a decision to provide no further funding to this fund may be perceived as not being supportive of intermunicipal collaboration. And as alternatives, administration has provided 3. So the first being that council approved funding of $286,923 in 2022 for year 2 of the fund to be provided from the stabilization reserve. Option number 2, that council approved funding of their discretion for the fund to be funded from the stabilization reserve. And option 3, that council defer the decision on the funding for year 2 until such time that transparency and accountability commitments made by Edmonton Global are fulfilled to council's satisfaction. And with that, I'll stop sharing and allow for questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. All right, we do have people lined up, so I'll start with Councillor Mackay.
Yeah, I'm at the front of the line. Thank you very much for your presentation, Mike. I appreciate it. A question in relation to the 5 municipalities that only provided one-time funding and then 2 decided to pull out. Are you aware of the reasons behind their decision? Was it just basically lack of the financial situation, or I mean, and you just have to tell me what's public record in relation to that, and then I have a follow-up question too.
Through your worship, Councillor Mackay, that question is challenging to answer just because I'm not aware of how much of that is public information at this point. That's why I didn't reference any municipality specifically.
No, and that's fair enough, and I can understand that. I'm not going to ask you to read between the lines. So out of the remaining 3, I'm assuming we're 1. Who are the remaining 2 that have yet to make a decision?
Through your worship, I'm not aware.
I can't remember who the other, all 5.
Spruce
I think
Grove,
Spruce Grove. So you can tell us who the 2 municipalities were that have already made a decision not to continue funding year 2 and 3, right?
I think Spruce Grove is one of them.
Is it Spruce Grove and Mornville?
I'm just trying to, through your worship, I'm just trying to see if I can find this information on the fly. I can't recall which are the 5 that have only committed the first year. Perhaps I can pull that up here and answer that at a later time.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just trying to get an idea in relation to who they were, and potentially that would lead me to maybe link into why they chose not to continue with funding for 2 and 3. So one of the concerns we had in June of 2021 was looking at the way that the money initially was, kind of the allocation method based on the one that they had was the EMRB resource allocation based on population, community, residential assessment. There was I mean, some of the concerns actually raised by the mayor in relation to that was looking at an alternative funding model. Are you aware of, and I probably should have asked this question to Mr. Bruce, and I apologize for doing it, but it just came to me. Are you aware of any efforts in relation to develop a different funding model, or is it just kind of be tied to the EMRB allocation method?
Through your worship, my understanding is that no other formula has been explored. And my understanding is that the letter that was sent to all of the other contributing municipalities, we didn't receive any response back from them.
So we asked the question, but we didn't get a response back?
Through your worship, I believe the letter sort of suggested that we look at other formulas, other options in terms of how that could be, how the formula could be calculated. And my understanding is that we didn't receive any response back from that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Broadhead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I certainly appreciate the difficulty with this. There's a balance between trying to be fiscally conservative with our taxpayer money, but also to participate regionally in promoting regional economic activity. My question to you is, have we heard or do we understand the process whereby the dollars are assigned? My question is that is it a standard package worth X for a particular airline to come, or is this a negotiation where they enter into something and then the dollars are offered on the guarantee that they come? Is that how you understand this program to work?
Through your worship to Councillor Broadhead, at this point, administration doesn't have that information. What has been presented is what has been shared with member municipalities and part of the attached report in terms of the evaluation criteria. So what criteria go into, how an incentive may be applied or granted. But the evaluation criteria is still quite vague.
Yeah, I note that you noted a couple of risks in the report, council report. I think those risks are quite real, actually, and I would hate to abandon, if you will, a regional economic activity because we haven't heard yet what the final outcomes are. One of the things that we wanted in going 1 year at a time was so that we could understand the good value that we are receiving for our money. And we await on that response, I get. And then when we ask Global for their response, they cite issues of confidentiality. And I understand that if they're still in negotiation for receiving these things. So there's some complexity here. I'm just wondering if the recommendation that's before us, even though they asked for a commitment by March, they haven't fulfilled our responsibility in being able to answer to our constituents that their money is being well spent. And so, but I don't want to pull that out until we get some assurance that they either cannot or never will give us that assurance, or that it's just not capable, and or that they're going to give it in April. And if they're going to give it in April, then I don't care what they ask for in May or March. I say we wait until we hear. But in any case, you know, St. Albert's a major player in the region. And if St. Albert pulls the plug on this, we're saying something. We're saying something that we're not really willing to participate in regional economic activity unless something lands on our doorstep. And I understand that we need to see some benefit coming back to us. But the whole idea of regional collaboration for economic development is that regionally we receive benefit. And I'd hate to abandon that as just a policy statement. So, Madam Mayor, anyway, you can tell where I'm going with this in terms of where I believe we should go as a council, but I'll wait for others to enter into debate as well.
Or we could wait till we get to debate.
Fair enough.
I had a bet on that there would be a question right at the very end, but I didn't.
It's all good, Councillor Broadhead. Councillor Killick.
Respectfully, I'd like to build on Councillor Broadhead's question. When the term incentive is used, it's a very broad, vague term. Does that mean we would give potentially billion-dollar airline that made millions of dollars of profit and potentially got that profit from laying off people, that we would pay them cash to, or are we like buying gas for their planes or buying landing spots for them with this money? Like what is actually the money spent for? And I'm trying to build on Councillor Broadhead's question of how do I explain that to our residents that have paid that tax dollar? Do we know what we actually incentive means in real terms?
Through your worship to Councillor Killick, I think that's a really difficult question to answer. I think at the start of this process, I think Edmonton Global, to the best of their ability, and Edmonton Airports tried to outline some specifics on what incentives could be used for. I know there was some clarification around some things that it wouldn't be used for. I think tickets were one of the ones that were identified. Your actual ticket that you purchased to get on the airline would be something that incentives would not be used for. But part of the challenge to this process is we're uncertain as administration as to what has actually occurred versus what was outlined within the original proposal. And that's the challenge for us, is we don't know exactly how the incentives and what they're being used for. We just know that these funds have been allocated for that purpose.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Councillor Hughes or Councillor Bermansky, do you have any questions from home? All right, I see no more questions from a member council, so Councillor Jelly, I'll go straight to you.
That the City of St. Albert provide no further funding for the Regional Air Service Opportunity Fund.
All right, I accept your motion. Go ahead and debate.
Thank you. This is a challenging one. I'd like to start with offering my congratulations to Edmonton Global and the EIA for raising the $15 million that they set out to raise for this project. And my hope is that these funds have helped revitalize the airport as it recovers from the challenges of the pandemic. But Councillor Killick, your question about what are these incentives, it really weighs on me, and I have to be able to explain that to St. Albert residents to invest. It'll be almost close to $800,000 at the end of the day into this fund, and we don't know where that money is going. So for that reason, I have brought forward this recommendation as kind of given to us by staff, and I do wish the EIA the best as they continue to recover, because they are a core piece of the economic viability of the region. So that's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else on debate? Councillor Broadhead?
Councillor Jolly, I certainly appreciate your perspective. I really do. And quite honestly, I think we're not the only council that's going to debate and come up with have to wrestle with the same question. I'm just not ready to pull the plug on it quite yet. I would rather see the third alternative that was presented by administration put forward today. But given that the motion is on the floor today, I would suggest that in my mind at least, regional collaboration and regional economic development is a policy I think that St. Albert needs to support, even when it is hard to do so. St. Albert is one of the major players in the region. We're one of 14 to be sure, but we have always punched well above our weight. And when we make a decision like this, we're making a signal to the rest of the region that regional economic development, if it's not in our backyard, is something that we're really loath to participate in. And I'm not sure that's a message we want to say or to send. So but I wrestle with the idea of being able to go back to the citizens of our community and say that this money is well spent when we've asked for accountability and it's hard to come by. I think the March deadline for this decision is premature. We have the annual meeting in April where they have to report on this, and I would just hate to pull the pin on this particular project before we have an opportunity to hear the outcomes of the sort of the program to date. I'd also like to encourage Edmonton Global to give us as much information as possible on this program so that we can in fact feel comfortable about saying, yeah, these dollars that they're asking for is money well spent, even if it's regionally effective. And so I certainly understand the motion. It doesn't reflect my heart, though, for regional participation and regional support of economic activity. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Broadhead. Councillor Bermansky.
Although this is sometimes difficult, I will support this motion. And the reason being is that I feel that St. Albert showed very good faith in regional collaboration by participating in this at the start, and with no return on your investment or any accountability from the other side, I don't think that they can fully expect that a person would commit to the next year, when it was the initial clause that you do need some sort of information that can allow you to make that choice each year following. So again, I feel that St. Albert has showed good collaboration and good faith to start in the first year, and we need it more return to be able to continue. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Hughes.
Okay, didn't want to unmute. So I think I'm going to support your motion, Councillor Jolly. I understand the perspective, Councillor Broadhead, and I'm not against doing option 3. But the problem is that they asked for a decision in March, knowing that the general meeting wasn't until April, not providing us the information we asked for. And the year one, the additional funding past year one was contingent upon them delivering specific deliverables, which they have not done. And then have still continued to ask for the money before providing those deliverables. So I think that we need to make a statement, which is that when we ask for something and it's contingent upon something else, that we expect to have that delivered. And if not, don't ask us for the money until you do so. And so that's really where I come forward with, is that there was discrepancies between what was promised and what was delivered. We said that the second and third year of the funding would be contingent on those deliverables. They didn't deliver it, and yet we're still expected to give the money under the name of regional cooperation. And I think that if they are able to provide those deliverables in the future, we can always reconsider the decision. But they've asked for a decision before they provide the deliverables and before they even have an annual general meeting. They could have asked for it in May. They could have said, we're doing the meeting in April, we're going to ask for your decision in May. They chose not to. And so with their own timelines of what they have put forward, I'm going to say that because you haven't been able to deliver, we're not going to say yes to more money. And if you do to provide those deliverables, we can always come back and have that decision and discussion at that time. So what you brought forward, Councillor Jolly, or the third one would both deliver that, but under their timelines and with what they've produced, I don't feel comfortable about saying yes right now. Thank you.
All right, I see no one wanting to jump into debate. Lots of good arguments, and I wasn't going to debate at all today. But I'll just, because you brought it up, Councillor brought it, and I always respect your point of view. I think even if the conversation had been started about an alternative funding formula, it was pointed out during their presentation that Leduc County did come up with a significant amount more than they were asked for. And I totally see why they would do that, because they get such a direct benefit from the airport's success, from new development in the airport lands. That benefit is Leduc counties and a good chunk of the city of Leduc. It's direct and it's trackable, and it's easy to justify with your residents as that return on investment. If they had even entertained a conversation for an alternative funding model based on the CD framework or any other framework that would draw that direct line of benefit towards the city of St. Albert and the communities up in the north that are quite a ways away, I think I would have been much more comfortable giving them further funding. But they shut it out, and that's what I'm quite sad by. When we did other regional initiatives, whether it be the transit or shared investment for shared benefit or CED, we went through long conversations about what's the best way for everyone involved to see success. That was not provided to us with this opportunity. It was regional, yet it was very dictated to us, and it was one way and no other options were presented. So I felt like when we gave the $145,000 last year, we were hoping for that two-way conversation, and we just didn't receive it back. So as Councillor Hughes said, if it ever comes in the future, I think we could always reconsider. But for now, I'm going to support the motion that's on the floor. Councillor Jolly to close.
Nothing further.
Call for the vote. Voting's closed. And that passes by majority with Councillor Broadhead opposed. All right, that is, what time is it? I think we can go through this next little bit before we go in camera, and then we'll take a break right before the in-camera session. So 3 different bylaws we gave first reading to today. The first one was Bylaw 47, 2021, which is the Jensen Lakes Area Structure Plan Amendment. We set so this will have to go to the EMRB first, and then we will set a public hearing date based on when it returns, and agenda planning will determine that one. Bylaw 48, 2021 is a land use bylaw amendment, and the public hearing for this one, sorry, this is Jensen Lakes as well, a 12 through districting, and it will be set for Q2 of 2022. And bylaw two of them, 3 and 4, 2022, are land use bylaw text amendments. So we gave first reading, and they are, the second part of this motion was that bylaw 4 being amendment 207. So I'll read them both. Bylaw 3, 2022 being amendment 206 to the land use bylaw lot with distribution in section 8.23 and schedule F be read a first time. And that bylaw 4, 2022 being amendment 2007 to the land use bylaw 9, 2005 townhouse setbacks in sections 829 and 834 be read the first time. That public hearing has been set for March 21st of this year. And the next thing on our agenda is there was no emergent items, civic and external agencies updates. I am prepared. I have the list in front of me today. So I'll start at the top of the list. Alberta Capital Region Wastewater Commission, Councillor Mackay.
Yep, I can give you an update on that one. If we're going to go individually, or are you going to individually?
I'm going to go by agency, so I'll be jumping around.
Okay, jump around. So we did meet the commission on Friday. We basically had to we had an unprecedented situation where we had to actually have a member of the commission had to step down. So we had to actually go into new elections. And so that was done. And I am now being appointed the vice chair of the Capital Region Wastewater Commission. I lost by a coin toss on the chairman. So, well, either that or I won, depending on how you want to look at it. But nothing of import in relation to Cayman, just regular operational business arising.
All right, thank you. Arts Development Advisory Committee, that's you, Councillor Bermansky.
That will be meeting tonight, so no update there.
Dates? Okay, thanks. Community Service Advisory Committee, that's you, Councillor Killick.
Nothing to update.
Nothing since the last update. All right, Edmonton Global, Councillor Jolly, well, or myself. There's nothing. We haven't met. There is a shareholder briefing this Friday. Are you able to attend that? Pardon? Okay, because I sent in my Friday update that I couldn't attend. So, yeah. EMRB. I did attend EMRB on the 11th, I think it was, of February. You all received a good briefing from Mr. Dooley. The two important things that were that our St. Albert's member motion passed. So the committee structure for EMRB committees is being referred to the Governance and HR Committee. So that's interesting. And but yeah, you got that briefing, so I won't go too much detail. Do you have anything on the Audit and Finance Committee, Councillor Broadhead? EMRB Audit and Finance Committee, did they have a meeting?
Not this month.
Okay. And then, oh, this is other good news. Sorry, out of the EMRB meeting is now St. Albert is back on the Metro Region Servicing Board. We had previously appointed Councillor Mackay to this, so now you will be attending and having to report back. But I assume you haven't been to a meeting since then.
We just had a doodle poll, and I'm waiting the results of the next meeting.
Anything on Transit Services Commission?
Well, a fair amount. So we had the Audit and Finance Committee meeting for the audit for the commission. We had the HR and Comp Committee meeting. We had the annual or the regular monthly board meeting, but we had our first strategic planning session. And the interesting thing about it is the commission had met virtually for the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. But this past Friday, which is why I wasn't on the call at noon, we met in person in the city of Leduc in their council chambers. And it was interesting that everybody was there, and we were almost giddy to meet in person again. It's been that long. And so we had an interesting, formative conversation around our strategic plan. It's interesting building an organization from ground zero, because you don't have anything to base anything on. There's no operational history, if you will. So it was exciting. I'm waiting to, quite honestly, be able to report to council the outcome of our branding exercise. because EMTSC doesn't mean anything to anybody. So in any case, that's where we are as the EMTSC.
When is that branding going to be done?
Soon.
Okay.
I told him I didn't want to be on the branding exercise because I've been on 8 and I'm 1 for 7.
Okay.
So I clearly don't have any feel for it, but I do know that others do. So
that's funny. You're still up, Councillor Broad, because the next on my list is Edmonton Salutes.
Edmonton Salutes meets on Friday, so I'll be able to give
So
update next time.
We'll get an update. Councillor Hughes, how about the Edmonton Waste Minimization Advisory Committee?
As far as I know, I don't have a meeting yet, so they have not put anything at all in my calendar.
Okay.
And I've just asked about it for an update.
Yeah, do you need staff to follow up on that for you?
Yeah, and I've already followed up with staff, but I did it once before, but I still haven't had anything, so I've done it again.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. We have not had an Emergency Management Advisory Committee. Councillor Killick, how about EAC, the Environment Committee?
Nothing to update other than our first big meeting will be in a couple of days.
Oh, okay. All right. Homeland Housing.
So we meet on Thursday for our board training session. So onboarding, we kind of had to delay. We were hoping to meet in person, which we were planning to do on Thursday. So we just had a regular board meeting in January. So regular updates, and I meet with the CEO weekly. And most of the outbreaks have either stabilized or been resolved. So really the biggest challenges have been ensuring staffing levels and keeping residents safe. But we're working with BHS and looking forward to the end of this winter.
And Council, I did invite Councillor Jolly to join me with our meeting with, oh my God.
Minister Pond.
Minister Pond, thank you. I can tell where my head is. Just in her role as chair of Homeland to talk about 22 St. Thomas and hopefully looking for some funding from the provincial government from there. So thank you for joining me. That was good. Councillor Bermansky, I don't think we've had an intercity forum on social policy since your last meeting, have we?
No.
Okay. And then it's the internal audit and steering committee. We haven't seen any movement on that. Do we know if that's even getting scheduled?
I'll need to look into that.
Okay, thanks. Policing committee. I know there was a meeting last week.
We have been busy. We did have a meeting back on the 15th and just a regular meeting. So we had pretty much regular business. We did recognize Dr. Christopher Wells, the former policing committee chair. Unfortunately, we still had to do it virtually, but certainly Dr. Wells was recognized as one of the key foundational pieces in establishing our policing committee. So, and it was nice to see him again. And then the rest of are just regular officer in charge reports. Inspector Cormiak provided municipal police reports, some of the crime stats. Most of the information that he provided will be presented as part of his presentation to council in relation to fourth quarter 2021 stats, and I believe that's coming up next council meeting. Interesting to note also that on the 17th he had his community open town hall meeting. It was available on YouTube, so I'm not sure how many council members caught it or watched it. A lot of good information in relation to what our policing service is doing in our community. So that's my update on policing committee.
Thanks for that. I'm sure we didn't have a quasi-judicial standing committee meeting. And I know we didn't have a recreation cost sharing agreement. So let's go on to the Seniors Advisory Committee, which is you, Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, we met. The committee is working on the priorities for the year. They also, I find that the committee is starting to morph well into recognizing they don't want to be an advocacy, but really advisory committee. So there's been a lot of discussion to ensure that the priorities reflect that, and any discussions that we're having, again, are reflecting that, so that the goal is really just to discuss any concerns that seniors have, as opposed to trying to find solutions for them. And one of them they brought back, I forwarded to council at the time, was just that having some chairs in service place is a simple solution, but they had mentioned how some people have Parkinson's and are working out and they can't do a full workout. And if they just had a place to rest, it make a big difference. So just the small details like that actually can make a big difference for some people. And so they are really trying to make sure that their focus remains in that realm. And there will be both an annual report and a priority session brought forward to council in the next couple of months.
Okay, thank you. We have Sturgeon County IEC tomorrow, so we can update that next month. Councillor Killick, has the Sturgeon River Watershed Alliance met?
We met originally, but we haven't had a meeting since our last council update.
Okay.
Nothing new.
Thanks for that. And last but not least, Councillor Jolly, anything on the Youth Advisory Committee?
Yes, so we had quorum. Yay. Really good discussion. They provided some feedback about what the purpose of the youth committee could be, because council will be discussing that in the next few weeks. I don't remember when that's scheduled for, so they provided some good feedback on that. Also provided some feedback on e-scooters, which I shared last week, and in alcohol in parks, which I can share when we look at that parks bylaw again. So that was the youth committee. I am able to go to Edmonton Global on Friday, and I also started an FCM course, climate leadership. I think that's awesome. Yeah. So the first session was really interesting, kind of an introduction to the value of sustainability to the municipality. And I look forward to 2 other sessions. And that's all I have.
Thanks. Okay, we have 2 notices of motions that we have to read into the record. Councillor Hughes has already done hers, but both Councillor Broadhead and I have one. Are you ready to go, Councillor Broadhead? Okay, go ahead and then I'll find mine.
Okay. I was 2 seconds ago. What the heck happened to it? Anyway, hang on. Here we go.
I have it up on the screen.
All right. As notice motion that administration bring forward for council's consideration a bylaw amendment to the land use bylaw or traffic bylaw, whichever is appropriate, that would allow digital sign displays, also known as digital copy, digital signs, electronic message features, and changeable display features in the various land uses in the region to be allowed in the PS land use districts in St. Albert. Additionally, that administration include in the bylaw amendment regulations with respect to technical sign features and capabilities, such as automatic luminosity dimming during nighttime hours and setbacks that would minimize any adverse impact on surrounding lands. Finally, that this bylaw amendment be provided to council for consideration and debate on May the 30th of 2022.
Thank you. And my notice of motion that I sent out reads as follows: that administration investigate the feasibility of hosting the 55 plus or Alberta Games, either winter or summer, and bring back to council a report on possible funding and governance of organization of such games. And I think I'll add a date by August 15th, 2022. So that's, I've checked, there is in the council. Does that work for you, Mr. Hiltz? Okay. All right, go ahead.
Just needed to withdraw a motion that I had made around what parks and bylaw we're doing with our moose situation. From when I read that in 2 days later, the situation had already been resolved. So that was great. Good job from Public Works, Parks, Bylaw, Fish and Wildlife. Successful outcome there. So I'd like to just, although I've sent that in to withdraw it, I'd just like to officially withdraw it in today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Hughes, your hand's up.
Yeah, thank you. Mayor Hearn, I know that you mentioned, Ray, at the beginning of this. I know that you did a really good job this meeting because it was really hard. I just wanted, before we forget, you know what I mean? Like you need to do something and you just don't end up doing it. I just want to acknowledge what an amazing person Rayanne was. She was beyond an employee. I think she was just exceptional as a human being. And so I'd say, Rayanne, if you're listening, you will not only be missed, but you can be replaced. So I just want to acknowledge her. It was a shock to everyone, but it was just beyond a shock. It is, she was a person that I don't know how we'll actually place her, both in her role and just it's the person that she was. So I just want to say that before meetings pass and we don't have an opportunity to say it. And I know, Mayor Herron, that this has been an incredibly difficult 48 hours for you. You were really close with her. She's your personal assistant. And her absence in your life is the most noticeable as you go into the office every day. And so I think you did really good considering everything that we're all going through right now. And I just, before it becomes out of date to say something, I just wanted to acknowledge her. So that's it. Thank you.
Rayanne will be missed. I know she spent a lot of time on the phone with you too, Councillor Hughes. You guys were quite close. Anything else for Carrie and his staff that we can do publicly? Go ahead, Councillor Broadhead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have an announcement and an information request. An announcement only because Council supports me being on the executive of the Canadian Urban Transit Association. We had our annual meeting here, not annual meeting, our quarterly meeting of the executive board. And I raise this here because it's of interest, because the National Association is making recommendations to the federal government around transit funding, because both the feds and the provincial government are willing to give capital dollars for infrastructure, and as necessary as that is, you can't build something that municipalities can afford to operate. So the holistic presentation of the organization to the federal government is to come up with a new deal around public transit that includes the idea of supporting the operation. Because if municipalities only have fees and property taxes by and large to support all of the services that we provide, and ultimately transit is a social as well as economic entity, and the higher orders of government need to come to the table and understand that need to support not only the capital investment required, but also the operational element. Otherwise, municipalities won't be able to afford to operate the very service that they're willing to provide capital funding for. So that's my announcement. My information request is we got this wonderful email around Villeneuve Road and the construction this summer. Unless I missed it, I thought I read it fairly carefully. I don't know what the detour routings are when the roundabout is actually going to close Villeneuve Road. Where is the traffic expected to? Is it Giroux? Or is it go through Jensen Lakes or what? So you can get back to me on that. You don't have to go right at the moment.
Okay, and I copied you all. I hope I followed up with that to look for. What did I ask? Oh, just to make a construction page on our website, because that's going to be a lot of work, and especially the church goers will need to know what's going on. People that back on. And I still am slightly worried about the kids running across the streets. So,
and that is in the works.
So I don't know if you want to just add.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah,
we can do the notice. We can do your information request, and your request of setting up a separate page for that is in the works right now with communications.
Perfect. Okay. I had one more question that I can ask publicly. So we got a memo a while ago about the HERA program, which is the Home Energy Retrofit Accelerator. The latest inquiry that we had indicated that it's not going to be up and running until Q3 or Q4 of 22. And I guess Mr. Hiltz, I'm wondering if we can accelerate that. I keep telling people the spring because it was approved at last fall's budget. I'm obviously wrong if I'm saying the spring, because it's Q3 or Q4, but we've got $50,000 in the budget, and if the program's not even running till the end of the year, do we even need that money in the budget? So I'm hoping we can. I thought we were just maybe copying what the city of Edmonton was doing, so it wouldn't be a lot of work. So if you can maybe light a fire, I think people are really ready for that one.
Yeah. So I will look into that and provide information for council. I believe it's a capacity issue right now, but I will definitely be on top of that.
All right, appreciate it. Okay, I see no more hands up. So the next thing on our agenda is an in-camera briefing on our meeting tomorrow. So let's make a motion to go in camera, and then we'll take a 5-minute, 10-minute break, and then we'll come back. We're doing it at our desks, right? Sorry, in this room? Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Mackay.
That council move in camera to discuss a matter pursuant to Section 21 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
All right, thanks for that. Call for the vote. Vote is closed. All right, that passes unanimously. We're in camera, so whatever you say between now and the end, we cannot reveal. But we will take a 10-minute break while we get kind of set up. So it's 5:50 or 3:55, so 4:05 we'll be back.